Hello everyone, and welcome to today's live stream, where I will be going over this gravity simulation that I made using the new for each geometry element zone, as we can see here. So this simulation took a little bit of figuring out just because I am not too skilled in the ways of, well, for each zones and all that fun stuff, because the for each zone was just implemented. So how does this work? Well, first of all, we have... Oh wait, is the stream working? Should be, yep. Okay, so we have a bunch of points, and then they have, the standard setup for a velocity simulation. But then, the unique part is that we have a gravity set up right here that goes over every single point and gets the gravity force for each of them, stacks them all up, sums them, and then applies that as the new acceleration, as we can see here. Now, the equation for this was a little bit interesting. I looked it up and I found this equation from the YouTube channel Deadlock, where they went over a bit of that. So, a lot of this, like this entire section right here, is just the for each loop, where it iterates over every single point except its own point, and then it does the mass divided by the distance to cubed, which we'll get into that later, multiplied by the unit vector, the direction, normalized. So this is what it looks like in nodes, though I did make a few changes just because some things looked a bit better. So right here, we can see that we get the unit vector right here that's normalized. We get the distance. In this case, I made it squared instead of cubed, because that looked a bit better. I'm not sure if that's because this is a 2D simulation versus a 3D simulation, but it worked well for me. And then I divided by the mass, and then scaled the normalized vector by that, and then summed up all the values, ignoring the current index, so that a particle does not try to move itself. So that is the entire equation. Oh, and also I added in a maximum to avoid division by zero errors, and also when 2 points get too close, their forces just go up, in this case I believe exponentially? Possibly. And it leads to not so good situations, which I will demonstrate here. Let me go back to the outliner and remove the cache from these simulations. So if we take a look at this without that, we can see that they go into infinity. This is because the planets become way too close, and since they don't have collisions, they don't combine into one point and stuff like that, which maybe I'll do in the future. They just skyrocket into infinity, which is not good. So in this case, they just can't get microscopically close, or within 0.1 meters, which in hindsight may be a bit much, so I could lower that into like 0.01, or even lower to 0.001. But we can see it starts to destabilize in that situation, so that is less than ideal. I also tried making it so that this maximum would be the point radius, but that led to marginal differences in the results. So the other parts of this sim, well, getting the mass... Oh, is the music too loud? I'm just going to double check that. I think it's just in my earbuds, or maybe not. I'm going to lower it by 1 notch, or 2. There we go. For the mass, in this case, the size of the particles will determine the mass. Mass is just radius squared times pi, and then I divided it by 100 just to make it all seem much bigger. Minecraft music? Yes. Right now I'm using Minecraft music because the Zelda music got copyright striked by 2 random companies, which is a little scam that's been going around YouTube for a long time. I've used the Zelda music for many of my videos for the past year or so, and they never got copyright striked. Video game music is usually clear, but I've gotten copyright striked on the Zelda music, Minecraft music, and all that, so I'm just switching between the two. So that I can avoid the scam companies that are making the strikes. But yeah, in this case, we can see the gravity simulation is working quite well. where we have one point that is rather large and a lot of very small points. And while they're going, we can see that we basically have two kind of galaxies right here that are rotating, and then they combine in a very cool fashion. Oh, another thing. If you're wondering why the mass, I'm not taking into account the mass of both bodies, the original point and the other points, because in this equation, let's go back over to here. In this equation, the mass of the original particle is factored out outside of the for each loop, which is something that they did and I am copying because it worked out extremely well. It looked much better than when I tried to take both of them into account. So it's apparently a better way of doing it. With the cubed part of it, rather than it being squared, I can show that off right here, using a multiply node instead of a power node because it is more efficient, even though in this case, well, no, performance is rather precious in this case. We can see that, actually, in this case, it looks a bit better. Possibly. We are seeing a lot of gravity. I guess it's personal preference. I did hear that there is a difference between 2D and 3D gravity simulations with how gravity just falls off, but I'm not sure. So I think I'll stay with it being squared instead of cubed because it is, again, simpler. And we get the nice galaxy action happening. There we go. Yeah, I want to try some more things out with the for each zone. Revisiting some old projects that needed it, and stuff like that. It looks incredible. I'm so happy with how that turned out. Okay. So we can try some other settings. In this case, I could make the mass just completely unnecessary, and then just set it to be whatever I want. It won't rely on the radius and stuff like that, but it will look very weird. I just want to see what happens when I deliberately try to break the simulation. And if the mass is 0, oh wow, dang, that is still freaking out. So that's what happens when things break. Huh. So if the mass is 0, then of course they just move away. And if I set it to 1, okay, that happens. Then all that occurs. I also have the trails disabled, which the trails, I'm attempting to use grease pencil for the trails. And they have a few caveats, but they are really nice because they are very cheap. And very easy to set up with the opacity and all that. Let's set this to be 0.1 and see how that... okay, that's what's up. If you're wondering why I divided it by 100, for some reason that gave better results, I'm assuming because it kind of scales the simulation. So if the mass is like, whatever, it will just be... I'll treat it as if it's a planetary simulation rather than a meter simulation. I'm not sure, but that's just what I found. Unfortunately, I do not have time to make it super duper accurate. That looks so good. Though there are, like with the grease pencil trails, I've noticed a few issues where if we set this to 1, in here it looks just fine, but when you render it, it renders over all of them, which is a little bit confusing. Maybe it's due to some of the render pass stuff, with it being geometry nodes instead of, like, being generated in here. But I will need to look that up, and also the material passes and all that fun stuff. I've gotten some situations where in the middle it'll turn black, just because there's a lot of parts in the same area, but only in the render, so I'll need to figure that out. But the trails do look very, very good. In the viewport, at least. I mean, you could combine all the planets by checking if the point has more mass than all of its colliding points, and then change the mass by the sum of the less massive points, and then delete the others. Yeah, I did think about doing that, but in this case, I just wanted a planetary sim without putting too much effort into it, if I'm being honest. I just wanted to get the baseline up and running, but I could make a version where they do combine and turn into one. I should also mention with this gravity simulation, this is extremely expensive because it is an issue where the computational processing cost is n squared, which means that it gets exponentially more expensive, which is really, really bad. At 1000 particles, we're basically at the limit of it being real time. In order to optimize this, people have done very interesting algorithms for it, mostly using quad trees, KD trees, and stuff like that. In a 3D program, you want to use a KD tree because that's just the most efficient in 3D space, from what I've heard. And speaking of 3D space, let's go and change this into a 3-dimensional simulation. And I will have to hide the background because the background is just below here because, again, I was being extremely lazy. So let's go and showcase this where we have all that. As we can see, that is looking very interesting. Now, if I just let this play out for like 1000 frames, we will see that all these should, in theory, if my knowledge of gravity is correct, all of these should converge into a kind of just a disk, because all of the rotations average, and that should eventually, given enough time, will turn into a galaxy. I'm not quite seeing it just yet. I think it'll need a lot more time to resolve. But we're seeing it has a... Oh, it's getting a general rotation. Oh, wait, did I... Oh, no. In this case, they did have a general rotation. I forgot about that. This setup basically adds a little bit of spin to the setup, just using the cross product for that, and then dividing it by the length square rooted. That just led to better results. So if we do this, I'm not sure if this would ever resolve and start rotating, because, again, they don't collide. But if we do start seeing a bit of spin eventually, I think they will start rotating normally. I'm not sure. Hi, Ben. Hello. How's it going? Let's see. Dude, you are the king of Blender. I am not. I very much am not. There are people much smarter than me doing Blender stuff. I do a lot of interesting stuff, and it's just because I like to play around with stuff and experiment. Like, this simulation is not good. There's no delta time, which in this case it's not really needed. It's not necessary for something this simple. It can be easily factored out of all the equations. But the mass, I'm just hacking together. The acceleration, I'm hacking together. I just want to make something simple. It does not appear that any general rotation is happening. Let's look at this. Let's look at it in 3 dimensions. Unfortunately, it may be extremely even. So let's make it a little bit less even and bias it towards a little bit. So here we have a nice little explosion. But since there is randomness, like here it's -5 to 5, the spin, given enough points, will be exactly even. Now there is randomness, but... And maybe that'll butterfly effect into an actual rotation, but I am not sure about it. Let's add in the original spin to it again, and let's set it to be 0.1. So here it's starting off with a spin. And I'm hoping that they come back, and as we can see, we have some more gravity doing its thing. But then we have little clusters forming over here. Now these are like their own little solar system, doing what they want to. So now, just with this, we can see that we have around 8 clusters, which will be their own little solar systems. I'm starting to think that I may want to edit the mass of these points. I think that might be a good idea, so that they can actually turn into suns and stuff like that. Look at that. That's looking amazing. Oh, that looks awesome. Almost looks like void particles. Well, that's the thing. Now we can do void particles. Unfortunately, I just do not know the equation for that. But maybe I will in the future. I could make it so that if 2 points are within a certain area, or within the sum of the radii, one point will have a mass of 0, and the other one will have a mass of that plus the original mass. So that in this case, we'll have one big central planet, and then everything else rotating around it. So let's see if I can do that. So this is the simple equation, and let's make it much worse. So first of all, we'll have to take the mass out of here, and put it before the simulation, so that we just have the mass on hand. Yeah, because we can just add the masses together, and that should be fine. So let's just not worry about that for the time being. And let's go and find the distance. In this case, we already have the distance between the planets. And if... Yes, okay, that should work. If the distance is less than a certain amount, we will take the mass from the nearby points and just add them together. So this will become messy. So add there. And... I'm trying to think a little bit. How do we make this in a good way? So let's put this over here and set that to be, flow. And let's set that to be the mass. So here the mass will just be the same either way. Well, how do I make it so that the other points... Oh, I can just use a comparison. If there is a point that has a greater mass, then turn your own mass to 0. I'm just double checking with this part. So the two states, let's make a switch node. The two states are either the mass gets added or it gets set to 0. And also the main switch, which is continue with how you're going or do something else. So this will make the node setup more messy. The function node would be appreciated in this case. Okay, so we have that. Let's just go and get the length separated just so that I don't need to edit the main equation. Greater than, or no, less than. If it's less than 0.1, then we will switch between it keeping its original mass and not doing anything, or the absorption between the two. Is this gravity? Yes, I have just messed it up. Oh, shoot. What? Oh, shoot. Forgot about that one. Masses. Okay, so I will need to do another attribute statistic in order to make this work. It's an invalid link using all that. Okay. Let me just go and mute this, chop that out. So right here, we can see that the gravity is working quite well. I did break something, but I'm a little unsure what. But if I set this to if we set this, the original spin to be 0.1, we'll see that these parts start moving, and then they start having their own little solar systems forming. It's a 3D simulation, so it's just working like that. So they are gravitating towards each other, and we can see we're getting clumps. Now these could be galaxies, or, you know, whatever we want. I do hope that in the future I can figure out a quad tree or a KD tree or an oct tree. I have made a... Is the music getting too loud? Yes, yes it is. Let me lower that again. Oops, sorry, 1 second. We're back. So that I can run this with like maybe 100,000 particles, which could be very, very cool. And since we have point clouds, I won't need to instance stuff on there, so the rendering would be efficient as well. How many particles can you run? Since this is an n-squared equation, or an n-squared system, we can only deal with 1,000 before things go really, really badly. as I will demonstrate here. Right now we have 2,000, which actually works okay. You know, it's rather slow. It takes 30 to 40 milliseconds. But if we go from 2,000 to 3,000, we'll see that things get actually not that bad. Okay, it's around 46. Or I guess I'm not doubling it. Yeah. So we went to 2,000 to 4,000. It's around 70 milliseconds, which is bad, but not as bad as I was expecting. So here we can see we're having quite a few points. What CPU do you have? One of the i5s. I do need to upgrade it, but so far it's been working just fine. In this case, it's just a matter of the gravity, it's because it's using a for each loop without any optimizations or space partitioning. So it can't be efficient with how many particles you have. Going from 1,000 to 10,000 is extremely bad. Extremely, extremely bad. So, yeah, that is something that I will have to look into. Like in future versions of Blender, some of the devs are looking into KD trees for lists and such. Or lists and KD trees and all that, which will need lists and all that. But I do want to consider, or at least try making my own, which may be possible. My current idea behind it is, especially since we have integer math now, this will be a reliable method. Imagine with a quad tree, you have 4 cells, in this case 0 through 3, for each cell. So that works. And then when you go up one level, you can have 3 more cells, which could be another integer, and then we can do this again and again and again, so this would be 3 levels. So each level will be encoded into one space in the integer. And you could go up, I think, to 32 levels signed before things freak out. Now the good thing is, this will work in 3 dimensions as well, because, well, we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's probably a more efficient way of doing this, but it should be okay. And then also, if I were to do a KD tree, it would just be 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, or even odd, even odd, even odd, in terms of the levels. I will have to figure out... I think I would try the octree version, because this seems like the simplest one. A 3D version, where just the space in the integer is the index level. So you can go up and down just by multiplying by 10 for figuring that out. And then accumulating all the forces, which you need to accumulate the mass and the position. And the Deadlock channel on YouTube that I found the equation for the gravity sim in also did an explanation about that 3 days ago, which is very convenient for me. So maybe I can figure that out. But I'm still not 100% sure if it's possible in GeoNodes. But that is an optimization, not a change, because if the optimization works perfectly, it just means we can run more particles, not that the gravity sim will be better. This seems to be almost the best that we can do. There is still a little bit of guesswork with how I set it up. Again, the one point being if it's distance squared or distance cubed. Because in the equation, it's distance cubed. Why do I keep storing images in the UV editor? Here it's distance cubed, but I found that distance squared gives some better results visually for what I was looking for. So what was I doing? Oh, right, I was accumulating the mass. So this will be very annoying to set up, but let's try this. So we want this to be on every point other than the mass. This does complicate it a lot more than I would like. And maybe I could separate it into its own for each element, but I think that would be a bad idea, making it just more expensive than it needs to be. So if we do that and then plug that into there, who knows? Maybe... Yeah, no, there was no way on Earth that was going to work. Interesting. Oh, something's happening. Okay. Oh man, this would be a little bit easier if I was smarter. Okay. So with this setup, the mass... Well, let me think about this really, really quickly. Mass is summing up the mass of all the other particles. But, oh wait. I can make this even easier if I just remove that part. And then use the distance here so that it will always include... Oh yeah, no, that is a good idea. So in this case, it could just be... We don't even need to bring the mass from outside because it's already being considered because we're ignoring that part. Actually, wait a second. Can I make this even simpler? No. Okay, in this case... Yeah, okay. Let's go and multiply this, where if it's... the distance is greater than less than a certain amount, it will be considered. And if that's not the case, then it just won't be. So right now we can see that those are being combined. I'm still wondering... Should I combine the radii so that I can see the visual change for easier... Yeah, okay, let's do that. So, quick change, we're going to re-include the mass into here so that it is recalculated every single frame because I want to see the radius without undoing the mass equation. So this is a little, cheat, but instead of dealing with the mass, we're just going to deal with the point radius and set the point radius. So here, set radius, point radius. Again, being very, very cheeky with this setup. So here, we should see, when they combine, And wow, that looks amazing. But we need to make it so that the other particles, their masses, get dropped. And the question is, how do we make that happen? We can try making it so that if the particles that collide have a bigger radius than it currently does, then it will set the mass to 0. I'm just thinking really hard right about now to see how I would do that. So we need to include that and then use a greater than node and then multiply one of these by that. Unfortunately, I'm still not skilled at this in particular. Multiply. I think I can try chopping that out. So here they all just set to 0. So let me make that a less than. Interesting. Set that to be 0.01 because I want... Oh, wait. That needs to be a switch node so that we can see... Yeah, no, that's not a multiply. What we need is a switch node at the end here, so that will switch between the original radius and that. Oh, dang it, but we can't... Yes, let me think about this a little bit more. So if it's less than that, then the amount stays the same. But how do we do that? If that's less than that, then it gets set to 0. If we just take this part out, will that fix it? No, it won't. Uh-oh. I believe I may have just crashed Blender. Oh no, we're still okay. The scales for these have just gone so incredibly huge that it became a massive issue. So this will be that and that. I could add them together, but if I add them together... Dang, this is, Oh, wait, I know what I can possibly do. If the sum of this is greater than... twice the radius, but no, we're dealing with multiple bodies at once. We're not dealing with two bodies at the same time, we're dealing with multiple bodies at the same time. Which is a little bit less than ideal for my small brain. Gravity. Right now, the gravity... Dang it, I did it again. The gravity part is pretty much done. I'm trying to make it so that when planets collide, their masses combine. Which should be easier, but for some reason I'm just not thinking about it correctly. In terms of a for each loop. Because the gravity part, you know, I can just go and disable these two. Gravity part is living very happily. We can see the nice little galaxies forming. It's very, very nice. Look at that one. So cool. But I want to make the masses combine. How would I do that with the for each loop? Because I'm just forgetting what part is happening, calculating on all the bodies versus the central body. Because it is... yeah. Just don't overdo it and create sentient life inside geometry nodes. Oh, don't worry, I already did that. We can tell if the radius is less than the outside radius. So if that is true, we want to say if it's greater than the outside, then you're normal. And that's just fine. That sum goes out there. So that part should be okay. It will either... no, that'll be the sum when... in that case, I would want the mean. So I would need the domain size. Okay. Domain size. So that... this is a bad idea. Well, let's try it anyway. You know, that's the fun of this. So we can switch between... We'll switch between 0 and the original mass. Let's just see if this works. I'm making it so that the sum will just be the same either way. We can see that, okay. It does look like the masses are going down. So I need to make it so that this will be preserved if the length is also within that. So if that and that are true, then do something. Oh wait, and the length being less than a certain amount, which in this case will be 0.1. Dang it. If that's less than that, then it'll keep the original mass. Okay, so that part's good. So if that's not the case, it will default to 0. So let's see if we can see that in action. Do we see any particles that just go and straight up look like they disappear? Let's set that to be 1. I am not seeing any particles go missing whatsoever. Though it does look like, potentially... oh, and let's make this a 2-dimensional simulation because I just don't want to have to deal with the 3rd dimension. That is easily fixed. Okay, we can see that it's shrinking, which could potentially be good. You know, we can see those are moving there and just slowly decreasing over time. So if that's within there, we should initiate the combine masses function. But if the mass is greater than that, then it will be 0. I need to take these radii and add them together. So, oh wait, no, that's not math node. I will clean this up once I figure it out. Nodes are very good for experimenting, but they often do not like... Nope, that goes up way too big, so that should probably be reversed. Nope, that freaked out as well. That is greater than that, but... Less than? No, but that just inverts what I'm already doing. What is the point? Greater than. Okay, I think this is too messed up, so let me do a quick reset. Radius. If the music gets to be too loud, please let me know. New soundtrack. Gravity part's just fine. Summing up all those values are fine. So the mass summing that, why is that part not fine? Setting the radius to be the average between all those. Let's try this one more time. Has to be less than that. And then the radius will be the radius. Multiply. And we are ignoring, oh, the self one. That could be a reason why. So here, if we just move forward in the simulation, we can see that happens. So we want to ignore the self, but it still goes up way more than it should. Still 0.1. So let's make this 0.01 and see what happens. They all disappear in an instant. But if we disable this, they should be the same, because there will always be one point that's like that. Oh, okay. Here we can see that that part is actually functioning. So how do we make it so that if the other radii are bigger... Oh wait, I could subtract the radii of the surrounding points if that part is true. Let me think about that. So subtracting the original radii by the other radii. Another research and development stream, everyone. It would have... Maybe it would have been more interesting to try out the KD tree. We can switch that on the condition if one of the radii is greater than the other. So I'll use a greater than, put that over there. Do that and put that in there. So I do not think this will work all too well. Yes, I was correct in my assessment. And still, it seems to be even worse. Let's flip that around. Nope. Nope. Come on, buddy. Oh, wait, that's because it's summing all of these, and this part was not diluted. And that is because... Yes, that is because I'm doing the distance check before instead of after. So let's do that. And what was the other one? Maybe it was just that. Alright. Well, we can see one of them is preserved. Let's try this, see what happens. Okay, only one of them is being preserved at this time. So if I were to eliminate that, what happens? Okay, something occurs, which is interesting. Let's take a look at that. So they are growing, but no, the exchange is not happening. How do we do... Oh, wait. Let me think about this. Maybe I do that outside of the for each zone. So we accumulate all of... Okay, let's try to do this again in a simpler, once again, manner. Let's go and get the radius. We don't need you. We don't need you. VOD watchers, skip to 1 hour. We have 20 minutes until then, so let's get going. Okay, so since we're not ignoring its own index, that part should be okay. Let's go and just move that down there. But if the new radius is greater than the old radius, which it will be, so we need to compensate. We will switch between a new radius and 0. So I just need to make sure that the situation is correct. Switching between that and 0. So we get radius, and then that being greater than that. So how do I tell which one should be eliminated? I can potentially track the biggest radius of the bunch. And if you are not the biggest radius, then you are eliminated. And that should work only if there are ones with different thingies happening. There are ones with different radii, because if they are the same, that won't work out well. So let's go and change this up to 0.1. We can see that ones are being indeed deleted. Simply because, well, quite often, when two radii combine, they are greater than the original radius. So maybe if we multiply that times 2... It does appear that they're combining, but not well. Not well at all. And this may also be a result of me doing this to the radius instead of the mass. So maybe it's a good idea to go back to the mass version of this, which is very easy. I just need to swap out the other stuff. But how do I make it so that I get the radius from the mass now? It's pi r squared, so how do I undo pi r squared? Or, yeah, pi r squared. Okay, let me get Microsoft Mathematics out. So the mass, I'm going to, once again, say it with me, move it out of the node group so that it is not part of the simulation. We'll start out with the radius being converted into mass, and then on the outside, for visual purposes, we will switch it back. So let me do this. Pi times r squared, and let's solve for... Or wait a minute. M equals pi r squared. There we go, and we need to solve for r. So r equals mass divided by pi squared, square rooted. Okay, yep, that makes sense. Let's see if it'll work. Let's see if my brain is up for a minor math challenge. Let's see, let's do mass. Plug you into there, and plug you into there. Maybe it's the same, No, it should be different because they're, you know, the square and all that stuff. And then we just need to store the named attribute, which is the mass as well. And then the radius will just derive from the mass. So that part there is mass divided by pi, square rooted. Oh, no, right, that's correct. Square root. There we go. Well, the mass appears to be, if we just remove that part so that's not edited, we can see, oh, wait a minute. That's because I have that, that part there. So, right, yeah, because I had that divide, not accurate, so I'm just going to go and change the fakery to be in here. So the radius will be bigger than that, just as a visual aid. Oh, here. Dang it. Come on, buddy. You alright? Or it could just make the instances bigger. Or wait a minute. Oh, okay. Wait. We don't need that anymore. But now, oh, okay, wait. No, I was right. Now the original radii need to be 1/100th. So I just need to compensate here. So let's divide that by 100. Just because with the scale of all this, yada yada yada. Okay, let's run it again. We can see here that that part is working, but since we have the... what have I done? Should work. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, since that was set to 1, it freaks out. Dang it. Well, anyway, that's anything other than 1, then it should operate okay. No, wait, that's 0.5. So if I set to be wait. I'm confused and perplexed. The combination is not happening, right? I know, that's just not enabled, so what the heck is going on? Okay, no, we're just going to eliminate the division part here, and we're just going to leave it as is and just deal with it like adults. Just deal with it like adults. So here we have that. We have that, it is working, and we're just going to deal with the consequences. Okay, let's take a look at this again. Now, since the gravity is... No, I need to do that differently. I'm still not happy about it, but maybe I'll just have to live with it. Okay, that's back to looking mostly normal. And then we'll set you back to 0.5. There we go. Still not looking great. Mass is still hyperactive. So let's do that. And do that. It's still being hyperactive. Hey, but at least we're having like a mini galaxy happening over here. And most of, oh wait, yeah, most of the points are still outside. So we can see that happens, which looks really, really cool. But I think unfortunately, I think we're getting to the point where my changes are overlapping and we're getting to the point of no good return. Oh, dang it. Accidentally opened up the Blender manual. By complete accident. Okay, let's set this to be 0.5. Let's actually show the equation over there instead of just having it horrendously zoomed in. Okay, I think I may have to reset this file to look at it with normal eyes. Which is something that sometimes you just have to do. Is the radius being used at all in here? No, it is not. So that part should be fine. The radius is just being set. And actually, we can just eliminate that part and take a look at that. And we can see that the gravity is working. Just at the wrong scale. I could go and just scale down the acceleration, but that is probably a Yeah. Well, it does look better. It does... it's fine. It is fine. Or I could just multiply that part and maybe that'll be a little bit better. Let's see how that looks. Is that okay? That's B 0.01 and 0.1. There we go. Okay, so now we're doing that virtual scaling of the simulation, so that'll be fine. Okay, we are almost at an hour already. Not great, not great. I had one goal, and I have not accomplished it yet. Or have I? I don't know, that kind of looks like it's working. Now, there will still be points floating away in space, but since they have a mass of 0, should be fine. And then with masses, that part is good, and I can make the interaction. But for that, I need the radii. Do I just get the radius of these? So that if they are within a certain range, they combine? No, let's leave it as a set value just so that I don't have to deal with that. It does look like they're combining, so I think, maybe we're okay. So that's B10. Getting some nostalgia from the Minecraft music. Well, we can see that at least that part is functioning. Now those parts, looks like we need the radius. Oh wait, the masses are being added, right? They should combine better than that. Yeah, okay, let's try it. Let's see. Let's try the radius and have that be just the interaction radius. Let's see, is that working? It is! It's not taking both of the radii together, which I can do just by doing boom, and then add, and then call that a day. Let's see if that works. The moment they touch, yep, it is working now. It's like, remember agar.io? It's reminding me of that. Oh, okay, so we did do it. Nice. But it doesn't look quite as good, just because, you know, the parts aren't overlapping. So, wait. I can just go and divide that by 2. So that when they're there, they will have to combine before they combine. So there, it looks a lot better. Look at that. The one caveat being... Oh wait, I'm not combining their velocities when that happens. Which is probably not okay. Because we can see when they do combine, someone is honking their horn outside, which is very nice. Well, wait, is this just a solid orbit? Just barely grazing the surface of the sun. How about that? Okay, let's run it again. So yeah, combining the velocity seems like it is in order, like that should happen. Rather than... You know, but we are getting planets, and it is looking very nice. Now, particles aren't being deleted, but I can make it so that if a particle has a mass of 0, or a radius, well, no, the radius is just a visual thing. And I also need to clean up this. Remember, if it works, don't fix it. Or wait, if it's not broken, don't fix it. So we have that part and then we divide that, and then this part happens. So unfortunately, this did become a lot more messy. But, you know, it's fine. It's fine. Okay, let's go and move this part down. Yeah, oh wait, we're not at an hour yet. I thought we were. Okay, so timing is okay. There we go. That's the mass combination. Now, the reason that we're not using the not equal part in the selection is simply because the mass of the original body is being added into the mass equation, so yeah. There we go. It's not the worst, but it's not the best. So now if I want to also stack the velocity, I would have to repeat the... Oh, wait a minute. Why am I... Oh, no, it's not working. Dang it. Let's just go and rewind the universe a little bit. That's what I was worried about. Making it so that if it's double... Yeah, no, that's not good. So it's close to working, but it's not. Or wait, if it is, maybe twice is the way to do it? I'm actually not sure. We can see that those two combined, but it did not look like it grew. Which is funny, because that's pretty much the part that is guaranteed. It will grow according to that. And then we can delete. But that'll mess up the trails, because I don't have indices specified. Oh well, that's fine for now. It will combine, it's a hacky way of doing it, but that's okay for now. And it looks beautiful. But, no, I need the mass to combine. I need the velocity to combine. So we can take the velocities and then stack them as I stacked this part as well. So we can do a vector, and then use the same length part to multiply the velocity and then send that through. And then we can make it so that if the mass is 0, it gets ignored, which should work. Hesitantly should work. Then I can go and store said velocity here as a vector. Okay, this is incredibly messy. Named attribute, velocity, vector. And then we scale this if that's greater than that. And also we scale it to 0 if it is not equal to 0. There we go, making this incredibly messy. I cannot overstate how messy and terrible this setup is. But if we do the... Dang it. Oh god. So the velocity, if the mass is not equal to 0, it should be okay. Yep, that part's fine. Oh no, wait, that part's working. Yeah, most of that should be working. But why is that happening? Why is it just having a very fun time spinning around the universe? The weird thing is that the mass is not accumulating in the same way. Yeah, no. Mass is not equal to 0. Or does it need to be its own mass rather than the other's mass? If the mass is 0, then it just does not contribute. If I were to delete the ones that have a mass of 0, this probably would not be too much of an issue. Or wait, do I need to combine the velocities multiplied by their masses? It's mass times velocity. Which means that, by definition, that part should be okay. Nope, it is still just zooming away into infinity. Alright, I think I'll let that one rest. I'll let the velocity part rest. Because the previous one was okay, and now I'm just heavily overcomplicating something that is overcomplicated already. Alright. There we go. So we still have the mass combination. Still working as intended. For the most part. I'm sure someone else in the community will know how to do it properly. I'm still fairly new to the for each zone in comparison to the repeat zone. Was there an update for the for each node? Yes, it is now included in Blender 4.3, and it has the element input. So if you're working on a spline, you could get the spline points, and it will separate the geometry, so just keep that in mind. I'm curious, with the for each element zone, is it faster compared to the repeat zone? Yes, but they have different uses. So the for each element is very useful if you want to do something like for each point, kind of like the field system. If you want to set position, you want to set a position for each point. If you want to extrude for each face, and so on. And those calculations are done in parallel inside of those nodes, for most of them. The repeat zone is for stuff that needs to be done, that needs to be repeated. If it's like, okay, extrude once, extrude twice, extrude 3 times, for fractals and stuff like that. I guess fractals are a good way of explaining it. The for each element would be, okay, fractal this face. But then the actual fractal part of it would be repeat the fractal again and again and again. So if it's like, oh, subdivide this face, the for each loop says subdivide for each face. The repeat zone says do that again and again and again. Split the face into 4. I hope that explains it. Okay, so that is a very hacky gravity sim inside of Blender. It's still not great because of the n-squared issue, where it will become exponentially more expensive, which in the future, if I can figure out a proper way of making a octree, which, yeah, octrees will just be simpler, so I'll probably do that. I could possibly make this better. I posted the gravity thing in your Discord, and now I feel really dumb. I don't think I properly understood the 4H node. No, that's completely understandable. Like, I'm still trying to wrap my head around this, as we saw in the past 30 minutes to an hour. It is a little bit difficult for me to wrap my head around, especially with what we're doing with it. Like, just to put it simply, like the set position node as a for each zone, because it does stuff for each inside of it, it's very simple. It's like, oh, for each point, move it. Add this stuff to there. But when you're dealing with gravity, where it's like, oh, do for each, but also take into account all the other points, that hurts my brain. Because you're forgetting which part is happening at which time. But yeah. Okay. Instance, layer, face, space corner. Yeah. You know something interesting I just thought of? Since we don't have the for each index zone yet, which is a variant of the for each zones, one way you can work around that is by doing something for each face, getting the elements, and adding or subtracting points on those faces. Basically reassign which one is a part of a face as a kind of workaround. Or you could just separate them into different instances, which is probably better. But separating and recombining realizing and then unrealizing instances can be not great in terms of performance. So, you know, until we get that node, you know, just keep that in mind. Which it's really nice that we have the for each element zone. It will make a lot of effects possible. Like before, this would be even more expensive if you were to use the repeat zone. But now, we'll be having a good time. As we can see here. Like with the repeat zone, a lot more evaluations would have to occur. But it does make me think. If I were to put this into here, would that make it more or... Oh, no, we can't. We can't do that. Those are only values on the geometry, not the geometry itself. Okay. So yeah. So going back to the original gravity equation without the mass combination parts, it's actually fairly simple with the repeat zone. But that's because the equation here is really, really simple. M divided by r cubed multiplied by the unit vector r, or the distance vector. I'm still somewhat puzzled why they used r instead of d for the distance. But I'm going to assume that's some advanced math stuff that I am nowhere near smart enough to explain. But yeah. Is there anything else? Oh, there is some more stuff that I want to try with the for each element zone, like wire packing. Like that robot arm thing I posted. That was made using a packing of wires, making sure they were equidistant from each other. But that was made using the index of nearest node, which is not great if you... It's not great for certain situations if it's like, oh, the radius of the splines is this much, so only take into account the collisions between other splines. But now we can. And again, with a lot of these like collision parts, it would be best to do that when lists come out in 4.4. But let's just not. That's for the future. Let's deal with what we can do for now, which is still pretty good. It's just a matter of doing it faster in the future. Right now we have the functionality. Okay, I think that's everything for today. I hope that was at least somewhat educational. I'm actually going to go and reset the file. Don't worry, I have the autosave, so... Or I can re-add it later, but I want to just end today's project with the... Oh, dang it. Oh, okay, I just forgot to save the latest color change before I started streaming. Okay. So this is one of the older color versions of the setup. But yeah, back to here. Let's just take a look at the original equation. Geometry nodes. There we go. The original setup in GeoNodes, which is extremely simple as we can see. Wait, that part's working. So it's just the distance vector pointing from the original point position to the other point positions. We normalize that so that we get the unit vector. Then we get the distance squared, also with a maximum to prevent things from skyrocketing. We divide that by the mass, and then multiply the unit vector by that. Sum them all up, and that's our new change in velocity, which is very nice. So if you do all that, and pick some better colors, you get what we had. So there we go. Let me also change the grease pencil trails. Yeah. And there we go. Thank you all for watching. I will see you all next time. Have a good one.